Hey, what's up guys? John here. California is in massive trouble right now. A lot of people are thinking that this is about to be over, and I'm telling you guys that this has only just begun. We haven't seen anything yet. The eviction moratorium, forbearances, all of the new restrictions that are going to be coming. There's going to be some really big problems, especially for the citizens of California. When asked to Gavin Newsom, hey Gavin, when are we opening up this state? He laughed in the face of the reporters and said that we need to extend it. I believe they're going to continue extending it for quite some time, unfortunately. You know, I love California, but seeing what I see now, I see that the California I once knew will no longer ever come back, especially under the rule of Gavin Newsom. But look at this video here. He's literally laughing at the reporters, knowing that 40 million people are losing their livelihood.
The emergency remains in effect after June 15th.
What's the reason for that?
Because we're still in a state of emergency. This disease has not been extinguished. It's not vanished. It's not taking the summer months off. For all of the reasons I just enunciated, that's why we are not lifting the state of emergency here in the state.
And so what do we do with this? Well, we take a hard look at the actual economics of California. We see the businesses are struggling, but how bad is the overall living situation? Homelessness and the eviction moratorium. A lot of people right now think that the eviction moratorium is a blessing because they don't have to pay 25% of rent. But when that rent is due, these people are going to likely be in big trouble. Now in this video, I'm going to break down what is happening in California that the mainstream media is not covering. So please smash that like button. When you hit the like button, you're essentially telling YouTube to expose Gavin. So please hit that like button. Let's begin. California is in massive trouble. We have roughly over 4.9 million rental units in California. And now rent is not due. Rent's not due. Tenants only have to pay 25% of their rent, as I've mentioned. But how much money has actually been given to landlords that are suffering underneath the rule of Gavin Newsom? Well, only about $1 million. $1 million out of a $40+ billion fund that's supposed to be distributed to landlords throughout America. But where is that money going, and why is this happening? Well, Gavin Newsom signed into law SB 1079, which will give him, the ruler of California, essentially first right of refusal to buy foreclosed properties. So you think about an alligator in a riverbed and a poor little lamb comes up to get a drink of water. That's essentially mom and pop landlords trying to survive in California, and Gavin Newsom is the alligator. And what we're seeing right now is I believe, the beginning of what's going to be the biggest storm that California has ever seen, because he extends and extends and extends his emergency orders. Look at this article. It came out today. It says Governor Gavin Newsom again extends his emergency powers, his state of emergency and mask mandate. California Governor Gavin Newsom yet again extends his emergency powers and California's pandemic state of emergency despite 46.4 million doses. 46.4 million doses. Population is roughly 40 million. So basically everyone got the you know what, and it's still closed. He's still extending. Why? Why would he be doing such a thing? This is not about public health, but about power, control, and obedience of the people. Newsom promised to open California on June 15th and reneged. He moved the goalpost again for the 9th time. So much progressive totalitarianism is simply creating problems and fixing problems. Yeah, the old problem, reaction, solution, all while imposing even more confiscatory taxation and stifling regulation and expanding the public union bureaucracy with additional layers of unaccountability and prevailing wages, a political friend commented after Newsom's announcement. This statement sums up the last 15 months in California. Governor Gavin Newsom announced on Friday that he will extend his emergency powers and state of emergency, as well as some masking mandate past June 15th, reopening the date, keeping intact his emergency powers, the one-man decisions first granted him last year, the Globe reported. Assemblyman James Gallagher responded with a tweet. The governor's actions today show exactly why our lawsuit is so important. The governor has no intention of giving up one-man rule over California. He's not going to give it up. You're going to have to rip that power from his hands. And I don't know if anyone is capable of doing just that. You know, the way that California is set up right now and all the big changes that just occurred, it's going to make California a really difficult place to change. And a lot of people will have intentions, good intentions of changing California, but the intentions are going to be very different than likely the results. We look at what the LA Times is reporting now, stating just how bad things are for business owners. People aren't talking about this, talking about how bad things are. They talk about, the same narrative over and over and over again. But the other narrative that's very important is landlords, mom and pop landlords, account for 22.7 million rental units, about 16.7 million properties. That is essentially the entire pool of housing throughout America. It's not owned by these big corporate conglomerates. The mainstream sells this narrative that it's all landlords like Mr. Burns from The Simpsons, just greedy. Most landlords are just hardworking people that have, one property. And maybe they have a deli or a small business and they just have this one property. But now in California, a lot of these landlords are going to struggle to keep that one property. The pandemic emergency is far from over for vulnerable renters. Since 2004, my family and I have rented one unit in a pre-war duplex in mid-city Los Angeles, the building I adore, especially the accents and the details, the zigzag motifs that top the doorways, the enclosed garden in the front. I also love the neighborhood. Over the last 17 years, I walked and talked and let myself be known here. I have written about it as home territory. I have become part of the community. Now, however, we might have to leave. The building is for sale and our landlady, who has lived above us for all the time we've been here, is moving out. It's possible whoever buys it will have plans for both units that don't include us. I have no rental NAIF. I am familiar with the risk of non-ownership rentals, or so convenient wisdom insists, are by their nature temporary, right? And yet, this apartment is where my wife and I have raised our children. It is where we celebrated and we struggle, where we suffered losses and made gains, survived and thrived. It is our home. And in the city, where according to 2008 Zillow report, 64.1% of homes were rented, an awful lot of people must feel the same way we do. But you scroll down here, the nuts and bolts of this right here. Use temporary emergency orders first issued in March 2020 by Mayor Eric Garcetti. No landlord can evict the tenant during the pandemic-related non-payment of rent in Los Angeles, nor can landlords enact no-fault evictions, which include a property owner taking over a unit for personal or family use or otherwise removing it from the market. The tenants in California are more educated about real estate and landlord-tenant law than most of the tenants or most of the landlords, because they have these free outlets. They can call BASTA and public counsel, all of these free tenant advocacy networks that will educate them and give them the information. And they're simply always looking for a way to get out of, their responsibility. In a lot of cases, not all tenants. Most tenants are really good people, just like most landlords are really good people. But this eviction moratorium is really changing that. It's changing the relationship between landlord and tenant. The local eviction moratorium, which is more far-reaching than similar state or federal mandates, remains in effect until June 30th, which we all know is likely going to get extended. And it can be extended monthly by City Council even after the order expires. Additional protections can slow the eviction clock. Well, the court system is going to be really backed up. So even if someone stopped paying, you're probably going to still have 12 months or 18 months during that legal process where they're going to be living rent-free. And if they don't have the money to pay you their back rent, how are you going to collect? That such regulation has been essential during the long months of pandemic lockdowns that should go without saying. But now, as my family contemplates the possibility that we may lose our home, the Garcetti order seems less likely an emergency and more like a longer-term necessity. Our personal housing insecurity, in other words, has brought Los Angeles housing insecurities even more sharply into focus. It's no secret that Los Angeles is caught in a devastating homelessness crisis. But most of the homeless people in California, not all, but a large majority, need more support, more mental help than they do housing. The situation will only grow more catastrophic if when the eviction moratorium is ended, because so many people have been unable to keep up with the rent. Once the order is lifted, tenants will have up to 12 months to pay back rent in full. The city suggests a variety of payment options. Good luck. Again, good luck. These landlords are going to be in really big trouble if they think that they're going to be able to collect. they're going to pay a ton of money just in legal fees in California to just get in front of a judge to get that tenant out. If I had a tenant right now in California that was not paying and they owed me 10 or 15,000, I would try to give them 10,000 to move out, and I would accept all the losses, because that would probably be a smarter strategy than waiting to get in front of a judge and then absorbing losses throughout that entire period, then paying my attorney 10 or 15,000 and not recouping anything. In an attempt to mitigate the rent's payback problem, Congress has allocated more than $46 billion for emergency tenant assistance, but very little has trickled down to those who need it. In California, which is among the states hit the hardest by rent delinquency, more than $20 million of rent relief has so far been approved, and only $1 million has been paid out. $1 million paid out over 15 months. If you think about the average, let's just say you have a fourplex and you have one tenant not paying, and that tenant owes you $30,000. What is it, 30 buildings in California? 30 buildings? You have over 4 million buildings in California, and California is the hardest hit. So what does that say? It means that these landlords are going to bleed. They're going to bleed. The problem is, in part, that the rent relief isn't something state and local governments are used to providing. Rules and applications and the apparatus for dispensing the money have to be established, and those in need have to be able to navigate the new bureaucracy. It's a really convoluted process. Shanti Singh of the California Renters' Right Coalition Tenants Together told Vox last month, people who are most impacted by economic hardships during the pandemic, they often don't have extensive documentation of hardship or job loss. How do you not have documentation? You don't have an email, you don't have proof of when the last time you were paid, but you're not able to even request this information anymore in California due to privacy laws. So a lot of people are saying, yeah, I lost my job, I don't have money. But they're saying this because California is expensive, they want to own their own property, and this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for people to save money. So they're only paying 25% of rent, they're pocketing as much money as possible, and they're enjoying life, and they're hoping to one day buy a home of their own. But this is going to be at the expense of a lot of bloodshed through small mom-and-pop landlords. June 30th is looming. I'm not arguing for free rent and an endless eviction moratorium. I understand that landlords have mortgages, property taxes, and upkeep bills to pay. But if the state and other government entities are slow to distribute rent relief, then eviction should not begin. The emergency created by the pandemic isn't over. This is pure insanity. They're going to do some really big things to the state of California, things that people can't imagine possible right now. And we're slowly starting to see this kind of unravel. But they can't push this on forever. I mean, this eviction moratorium is eventually going to expire. And when it does expire, what will happen? Will these landlords simply be able to just remodify their loans? Probably not. Will these landlords have to probably sell their properties? Will they be in financial hardship? Will they likely lose a lot of, their livelihoods? Yeah, most likely. And it's all thanks to investing in the wrong state, buying properties in California. No one could have predicted this 5 years ago. But if you're a new real estate investor, you're considering to invest in property, understand the states that you are investing in. If you are going to invest in places like California and New York, these places are not your friends. I mean, you're going to incur a large level of risk having invested in these states when you could invest in other areas that are more friendly for business owners and for landlords. So take this into consideration when you're investing in property. So with that being said, smash that like button and consider subscribing to this channel as well as my second channel, my personal channel down below. I'll leave the links, and I'll see you guys in the next video.